Welcome into another week of Dropping Dimes here on my channel. I almost said on Collider because that's where I used to do this show. You know what? After last week saying, it's still too early to tell and, we got to wait and see, kind of slow roll into the season. Last night, the NBA just threw an A-bomb on all of us. And I invited on our guest today to talk about the Suns, and the Suns we will eventually get to, but there are three other things that came out in the past 24, 36 hours that are just too juicy to talk about, to not talk about rather. So I am excited to have on for the first time, and won't be the last because we got to have more Suns talk on this show. Mr. Andres Cabrera, how are you, buddy?
Good, man. Good. What a weird time for the NBA, man. What a weird time.
I know it's been, like I just said, it's been slow, trying to figure out what is real, what isn't, who's playing well so far, and then if all hell didn't break loose in the past 24 hours. Now, some of it we kind of saw coming, with the Harden, which we'll open with, but the Kyrie situation is, I don't even know. I mean, now Stephen A is calling for him just to go ahead and retire.
Yeah.
Yeah, NBPA agreed to new stricter COVID restrictions yesterday. So there's a lot to talk about today. But how are you? Let's start there.
Good, man. Good. I've been happier than I have been for a long time when it comes to the Suns. A couple friends have been asking me how my 2021 is going, and I'm saying I'm doing pretty well considering we are top 3 in the West, and that's the best we've been in a long time. So that's pretty much how I'm measuring my excitement for the year. So let's hope it continues. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, well, look, you got a shot. I don't know about top 3. We'll see. But at the same time, if Chris Paul can get the Thunder into the playoffs last year, I have all the faith when you add somebody like Devin Booker next to him and Ayton, and there's a lot on your team that I genuinely like. That's a squad that it's built to win. So super interesting. But before we get into the Suns, which we will eventually, let's go ahead and start with the Harden taking a flamethrower to his own team last night, saying we don't have enough. With this ship has sailed. Nobody's given more to Houston than I have, but I don't see a path forward, and I'm fucking out. In essence, if you read between the lines, he's pushing even harder for the trade now. Did you see the press conference, the little clips and whatnot that came out?
Yeah, I did. And I texted you as soon as I saw it because I wasn't sure if you saw it at the same time I did. But I saw it, I was like, oh, he said it. It's done. Because once it's over, right? Because you can have the media speculate and you can say no comment, next question. But once you go out and say, hey, I've literally given all this to the city. These guys aren't good. We are not a good team. We have no team chemistry. I tried. Have a good day. And he just peaced out. I was like, oh, he's done. It's over.
I tried. You're like, I mean, there's been the past, 3-4 games, he has looked so mentally checked out. People are looking for anything that they possibly can to point as evidence to that. But there was a clip last night where he threw the laziest pass to John Wall. Everybody's like, look, see, but that could just be anomalous. But it does look like it's part of an overall pattern. I mean, he's got a list of teams that he wants to be traded to, which is Philly, the Nets, Boston, Toronto, and Milwaukee. I believe are the 5 that he said he would love to go to. Whether or not he goes to any of those, I don't know. Right now, I think it's Philly or the Nets are going to make a move on this. But if you're Houston, I mean, how long do you hold out? Because they've talked about just sitting him at home and you don't have to play, and we'll just, we'll Iguodala you and just sit at home, and you're a cancer around this team, and we'll figure out eventually a trade package.
That's the problem, right? It's if any team has the assets that Houston even wants. This is the whole conundrum, right? Where it's like, do you even have enough where Houston is saying, yeah, that sounds like a good price for Harden, where so far all the teams haven't given enough, haven't wanted to give. Houston has been asking, because I'm pretty sure Philly has said that they don't want to trade Ben Simmons. And I'm pretty sure Houston, that's like, it's either Ben Simmons or nothing. It's same with like, do the Nets even have enough? Even trade their entire, second unit. Is that enough for Harden? I don't know. And I don't even know if it's worth for those teams, even though the Nets have been swinging a bit. I don't think Harden is going to help what the Nets need right now, which is defense. I don't think that's going to necessarily. They have Kevin Durant. He scored like 35 and had like 13 assists last night. I'm pretty sure they're fine on offense. What they need is defense, and Harden is not necessarily a defensive stopper, so I don't think it's worth the price there. And Philly is what, number 2 in the East right now? Like they're doing fine, or number 1 in the East. That might be.
They're number 1 in the East. But yeah, the Nets. I mean, So according to reports, is everybody's on the table except for Durant after Kyrie now.
The Kyrie thing is wild.
Yeah, we'll get into that in a second. But let's just say that Kyrie is off the table. Do you really want to sacrifice Karis LeVert, Allen, Harris? Like you need these guys if you genuinely want to compete for a championship. So do you sacrifice that? Plus, they want 3 future firsts. It's just like I don't know.
For
if
a guy
I
who always wants the ball, like
yeah,
I don't know if that's worth the price.
They already have 2 guys that are ball dominant. Now you're going to add a 3rd guy that's ball dominant. So it's going to turn into they just switch off, handing off, like you hold the ball and ISO for a while in this possession, then you do it. I don't understand. Whereas if Philly can get away with Ben Simmons for Harden, it's what else they want with that, but that's the best I see out there for them.
It is. And honestly, I would actually kind of like that. Even though Ben Simmons has been pretty quiet this year. I mean, he had a triple-double last week. But besides that, it's been like 8 points, 8 assists, 7 rebounds. It's been pretty quiet for Ben Simmons. But still, you still have John Wall there. You still have Boogie Cousins there. If they start to improve, and if we had Ben Simmons at point guard or Ben Simmons at any position, I feel like Houston could be a pretty fun team to watch. I would do that, but I don't think Philly wants to do that because they still believe in Ben Simmons and because he's still pretty young too.
Well, I think that whole we don't want to trade Ben Simmons is what you have to say because you don't want to piss off your star player. But if Daryl Morey can make a trade for Harden for Simmons, he does it in a heartbeat.
That's the thing too. Is he the star player now, especially with the way Joel Embiid has been playing? Joel Embiid has been playing like MVP level.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where, again, I've reiterated that Ben Simmons has been pretty quiet. Do you start to say now, like, hey, that Harden trade doesn't sound too shabby, especially when you're seeing what Joel can do when Ben has been, decent at best.
But, I mean, it's been a slow start for a bunch of star players. I mean, look at Luka. Luka's not having the greatest season out the gate, and he's still the odds-on favorite to be MVP according to Vegas right now. Once again, still kind of early, although he was my preseason choice, just given his overall growth and whatnot, but that's neither here nor there. With Embiid, it's can you get this year 72 games of health out of him? Do you want to try and play him 72 games? So there's more consistency with Simmons, but if Houston does make that trade, I don't even understand how you can put Wall next to Simmons because Simmons is only truly effective if he's got the ball in his hands because then he's a playmaker. He's not, an off-ball threat to shoot. And neither is John Wall, really, although Wall's a little bit better shooter. So it's, okay, now you're saddled with Wall's 30-some-odd to $40 million eventually contract with Simmons, and I'm not sure what exactly this team is, and they're not going to compete for anything in the West more than likely, but maybe, but I sincerely doubt it. That's probably the best haul you're going to get as of right now, unless the Nets are foolish enough to say, hey, liquidate our assets, go crazy. Houston wants the Drew Holiday deal, and they're not going to get the Drew Holiday deal.
No, and honestly, I would give that Ben Simmons Houston team a shot. I think it would work after a bit. I think Simmons can work in a team. I think he's a much more pass first kind of guy. I think John Wall, I mean, if they got to know each other, I think John Wall is just so done. I saw his press conference too, where he's just like, I want something new. I don't care what it is, but he's like, this isn't a team. I've been on bad teams and I've been on teams that have no chemistry, and we have no chemistry. He called themselves an AAU team, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of what it is. Yeah. I mean, they went out and got a collection of random pieces and trying to make it work.
I mean, yeah, he flat out said like Harden, he doesn't name drop him, but it's hard to compete when one of your guys is mentally checked out. And you're like, yeah. So I think we all know who you're talking about right now. Yeah, it's just, I want to see Wall succeed because he seems like a very good guy. Like if you talk to the residents of DC and whatnot, they'll miss him for his basketball, but a large chunk is for how good he was for the community. And just, the gang sign thing aside, I know that didn't sit well with the Wizards front office, but seems like he's probably a very good guy, and I'd like to see him succeed because he had to struggle through a bunch of years with the Wizards. But, he's in a situation now that is really tough. So of those 5 teams, and then you still have the Celtics, Bucks, and Portland, but I don't know that any of them is going to put together a better offer than Ben Simmons. So I don't think they're really, realistic.
No, I the only option I see is that kind of almost 1-for-1 trade. It probably won't be 1-for-1 as far as Simmons for Harden straight up, but I see that almost as a good offering as far as here's this guy in his prime and here's this guy on the come up, young point guard who can drive in the lane and who can shoot out. Who can pass out to shooters. That's the Ben Simmons trade for Harden. That to me is the best option. I'd like that option too if I'm Houston. And if I'm Philly right now, I'm like, hey, Joel is our top dog anyway. How cool would it be to add Harden? How much more of a threat would we be? But then again, you could say we're number 1 in the East. We're doing fine without him. Yeah. We have Seth Curry. We have Danny Green who are shooting. Why would we need a Harden?
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, Danny Green set the all-time Sixers record with 9 threes, just lights out. Couldn't make a 2, but was utterly lights out from 3. I love that the Sixers had this model when they had Jimmy Butler and JJ Redick, and it's surround Joel and Simmons with shooters and playmakers, and then they deviated from that, and now they're reverting back to let's surround those guys with shooters. It's like, oh, look at that. It's fucking successful.
Yeah,
the success we already had. Let's replicate that as best we can. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't know if you stir the pot on this one right now because they are technically the best team in the East.
Yeah, they're winning. So that's why it's like, do we want to stray off this course right now while we're winning? I don't know. It's a tough bet because it's still James Harden. Like the guy can still drop like 50 and get you like 13 assists and 10 rebounds. Like he's insane.
Dude, he's out of shape and he can give you 35 guaranteed.
Yeah. It's crazy how he scored. I forgot that game. I think it was a Portland game that I saw where he scored like 47 points and like 13 assists. And it was insane.
Was in, where was it? Atlanta with his trainers. Because that's where his trainers are. And then it shows up first game. It's just like, yeah, you know what? Even out of shape. It just mentally, he needs to be checked in the past 4 games. He has not. Yeah. And might as well segue over to another person that doesn't seem to be mentally checked into this season, which is Kyrie Irving, who is just decided he wasn't going to show up at one point for personal reasons. And, they asked Steve Nash about it. He doesn't have any answers. They asked Bobby Marks, and they have to issue a statement of basically saying he'll be back when he needs to be back. But then there's video of what appears to be Kyrie at his sister's 30th birthday, although his sister and his dad share a birthday. So it was like a big celebration, but it was her 30th was the primary. A lot of people were saying it was, he flew to Toronto for Drake, but it looks like he was in New Jersey, which isn't too far from Brooklyn, but at the same time, should be with the team. I mean, last night's game, the tip-off was 7:30, and he was in a Zoom meeting with the, the DA in Manhattan or something like that at 7 o'clock. So instead of sitting on the sidelines, he was in a Zoom meeting, not in the arena. Doesn't look like he's not showing up anytime soon. No. And he'll have to do, COVID protocol for a little while here. So what do you do if you're the Nets?
This is kind of insane. I've been keeping up with the Nets mainly because of Steve Nash as coach. I'm very partial to Nash. I grew up in the Nash era. I went to see all the Nash games. Like he is my all-time favorite player. Like that is my player here when I would go to the Suns game in Phoenix, Arizona. So I am very partial to this Brooklyn Nash team. And I've been watching Kyrie play. And honestly, like, I forgot when I was a freshman in college and I would watch these Kyrie games, he was my favorite player in the league. And then when I saw him play these first few games, I was like, now I remember why he was my favorite player in the league. The guy is insane. He's lights out, incredible, but it's still Kyrie Irving, and he's still going to be kind of insane. And that's kind of what Kyrie does. If I'm being honest, man, when it came to last week and when he didn't want to play that one game right after the Capitol Hill riots, and he posted that Instagram post basically saying like, hey, now is not the time to play basketball. Now is just the time to focus on real issues and stuff like that. I was okay with that. I actually thought that was fine. As long as you let Nash know, sit out a game, that's cool. Mm-hmm. It's the whole party, maskless, birthday party thing. That's what you just said. It was the Capitol riots, man. You can't just show up at a party and be smiling and dancing and laughing and singing karaoke.
Yeah, and give for personal reasons, but it's nebulous because there's no definition in what this is. Personal is a family tragedy. Like DeMar DeRozan had to leave the Spurs because his dad has fallen ill. Mm-hmm. It's like, that is a legitimate reason. Go be with your father. Whereas Kyrie's is just like, it's personal. It's like, what does that mean? And the only reason we care is because he's one of the marquee stars and he's making $30 some odd million to play a game. And it's just like the bubble. He didn't want to go to the bubble because he felt it was going to take away from the movement, like the Black Lives Matter movement, and it was surging through the U.S. And it's understandable. But once it got to the Capitol, insurrection, you read it as, okay, there are bigger things than basketball. But I also read it as, are you just trying to create another excuse because you don't want to go out and play anymore? Do you have the heart for this? I don't know. Whereas your teammate Durant looks like he's back to being Durant and he wants to murder everybody again. And I've watched 4 Nets games so far just for Kevin Durant to see if the Achilles is healed. And guess what? It is. And he is one of my favorite players. Yeah. As a guy that loves a team that's been dog shit for a long time, I got to find my favorite players elsewhere. So, man, I mean, if you could do a Harden for Kyrie, just straight up, I kind of do that if I'm the Nets.
Yeah, but does Houston want that?
I don't know. That's a great question.
I don't know if Houston wants that much. I mean, they're just dealing with this craziness with Harden. Now you're going to add Kyrie. I don't know if that's necessarily going to heal things.
No, probably not. Probably not. You're right. You're not wrong. But if I was the Nets, I'd be like, oh, no, it's legit reasons he had to be gone. And if I just lie through my teeth, if I could, because as much as I don't, it's still Durant's team. At least at that point, Harden is mentally checked in, and perhaps the two of them, they'd be an unstoppable offensive force. You brought it before. It doesn't help their defense in the slightest.
No.
But you're going to have to score 160 points against them.
Did you see the Atlanta-Brooklyn game? That game was so fun. It was about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
that's the one where Kyrie scored like 18 in the fourth quarter. Mm-hmm. He just went off. Like 18 points in the fourth quarter. Basically just scoring left and right, driving at will. Atlanta couldn't stop him. But then again, Atlanta can't stop anybody right now. No. But it was one of those moments where I was like, I can see what Brooklyn can be with Kyrie and with Kevin Durant. It can work. I think it can work. It can be a really good team. The problem is, like you said, I think Kyrie's the kind of guy who wants to play when he wants to play. And I don't know if that works in the NBA in the modern era. I mean, maybe back in the day, but I don't think right now you can just get away with like not skipping games and being like, hey, I just want to go to parties right now with my sister. Like maybe that's fine in a different time. But right now, when you're getting paid that much money in a major team, in a major market, I feel like you have to be there. If you skip one game, it's one thing. But then when you go to a party and say it's personal reasons, it's like giving your boss an excuse as far as like saying, yeah, family stuff came up. And by family stuff, I mean like a family party.
Yeah.
Like that's family stuff. That's family issues.
I understand hey, I'm sick of these protocols. The protocols are only going to get more stringent, and we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah. So wanting to get out and have some sort of normalcy is perfectly understandable, but you're getting paid such a handsome sum. It's like you have to suck it up for one more year or for another 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
It's not fun, I'm sure, as being a young in his 20s, multimillionaire, internationally famous guy that should be living it up and have the time of his life. We all get that. We're envious of that position, but there are certain, push and pull with that kind of status. And are you willing to take the mantle of being a marquee guy in one of the world's most known leagues? I don't know. It just seems, whereas look at his partner in crime right now, Durant, it doesn't seem like there's anything Durant wants to do more than murder his opponents on the court every night.
Here's the thing, though. I think this is where maybe just because I'm the, positive kind of guy, but maybe this is where Nash comes in. Maybe this is why you hired someone like a Steve Nash, someone who can maybe be the mediator between the Kyrie personality and the team itself. Maybe there is some sort of bridge or a light at the end of the tunnel as far as him coming back, Nash having to sit down with him, talking to him, Nash being a kind of very famously understanding kind of guy. And maybe he can find a way to fix this whole situation. I think that's why they hired someone like a Steve Nash, to be honest, is because he was a player and because he is a point guard and because he is the kind of guy who gets mixing personalities to come together like he did in Phoenix when it comes to Marion and Amari and all these kind of big personalities that were kind of, asking for the ball and asking for different situations. Maybe that's why you get someone like a Nash. Maybe this is like a Phil Jackson, Dennis Rodman type situation where you let him go to Vegas and party and then let him come back and be like, hey, come win a championship now.
Yeah. I don't know what leeway you give him because he can't go to Vegas. He can't do any of that shit if he wants to play, because even if he does and you come back, it's like, all right, man, you got to sit in protocol for.
This is it's different. Yeah, it definitely is different with COVID, but hopefully I'm crossing my fingers that this has some sort of remedy at the end of it. But right now it's definitely code red. It's definitely terrible. It's definitely Kyrie gone another week, which leads to more speculation and more media coverage of this whole situation, which is not good at all.
No, and I think Nash was Durant's choice, if I had to guess, because I know that they have a friendship and a relationship. So given the fact that Kyrie in the offseason on Durant's podcast said, I don't even know if we need a coach. Kevin, you can be a coach sometimes and I can be a coach. So it's not like we really need a head coach. So now he reversed course and said, a couple weeks ago, oh no, Steve's great. And he's blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, part of me knows that he still believes that the earth is flat. Even though he came out and said, oh, that was a joke, and be like, man, I listened to that clip. That sounds pretty legit. Like you believe that. So just because you turn a 180 now doesn't really sell me on the belief that you genuinely feel this way. So I like your idea that Steve is going to be the one to basketball whisper him back into being a, marquee player again. But I don't know if he extends the same respect to Nash that Durant does.
Yeah, and it's the worst part too is that Brooklyn isn't necessarily even playing that well. I think they're middle of the pack in the East. I think they're 6-5. They've been losing a lot of games. They've been winning a lot of games, but the problem is they have absolutely zero defense, which again isn't necessarily Kyrie's forte or Kevin Durant, not right now at least. With the Achilles. I mean, obviously he's doing his best, but right now I think the team needs to come together more than ever, considering that every game matters and every game counts, which is why these COVID protocols have been absolutely devastating, considering that they've had certain teams play with almost no players. So
Philly got screwed.
Philly was bad.
Yeah, and then other teams are allowed to postpone their games. And then Philly fans take it as a silver sticking it to them for the process all these years later. But yeah, let's go ahead and segue over into that, because there is no answer to the Kyrie situation. Just like right now, there is no answer to the Harden situation. It's purely speculative. So the new COVID protocols, the NBA and the NBPA have agreed to just lock it down. You can no longer have non-team and staff members in your hotel room. It was up to 2 people that were family members or long-standing friends. You can't leave your hotel room to go to any pre-approved restaurants or any non-team official sanctioned events. So basically, you just need to sit in your hotel room and then go to practice and go to the games. They're trying to stop this because right now they've delayed, I think it's 4 games in the past week, 4 or 5 games. You know, the C's have missed 3, I believe. But numerous teams now have had to miss games. They're going to have to make these up at some point. They don't want to have a stoppage in play because they need this to finish before we get to the Olympics, and also so they can start the next season on time because they're worried about next year, the looming TV contract and the CBA and everything, how it's going to affect further the ripple effect going forward. So they need this to stay on target. But George Hill came out and bristled at it and saying, how are you going to stop me from seeing my family members? How are you going to stop me from doing these things? Like, I'm a grown man. And he's not wrong, but the NBA needs to do something at this point.
Yeah. How do you feel about what they chose to do as far as the rules they set in place? Do you feel like that is the adequate decisions to stop this or to hold it?
How do you, I like the nobody goes to your hotel room, even though
that's the strongest one. Yeah.
Yeah. Because how do you determine somebody, this is my long-standing friend? How do you prove that? So you could just lie and invite anybody you wanted to up to your room, and now you're breaking protocol with somebody you met on Instagram or Twitter. So that's the conundrum of, if they can shut that down, because I think eventually they could get to the point of opening up pre-approved restaurants. That could be back on the table, because here in LA, nobody can dine in. But if you guaranteed that the staff is constantly being tested or whatnot, then the team could, hey, this is one of the restaurants that you can go and sit inside of. It's closed too. It's like a private event type of thing. That's potentially back on the table, but limiting outside commingling with people is the biggest key to this. So that's, if they can get that to stick, they got a chance. The difference with, say, the NFL that managed to pull this off and the NBA is the NBA just plays much more often.
Yeah. A lot more often. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're playing 4 games a week, whereas the NFL, it's like you have time to do the testing and the lead up to, and you can basically keep your guys quarantined until we get to the next game. Whereas the NBA, it's much more difficult to do that.
Yeah, the problem too is obviously, I mean, this has been reiterated by pretty much every NBA analyst on TV, but the contact tracing has kind of been killing everyone, because it's not necessarily the amount of people that have got positive tests, but the amount of people that they've been around or that they think they've been around, which is this whole contact tracing thing, as far as like, hey, when was the last time you talked to Seth Curry? Oh, now you got to be in quarantine.
Yeah.
You know, this whole situation that is kind of, I think that's kind of been destroying it more than anything else. And it's not necessarily me saying that maybe they should stop doing that, because that's the correct thing to do. But do you stop?
Arbitrary.
Yeah, but do you stop doing that? Because at some point you're like, well, these guys don't have positive tests. How do you measure, like, when was the last time you spoke to this guy as being, well, now you have to quarantine? Like, that's tough.
And you're not allowed to pre and post game speak to players on the opposing team anymore.
Yeah.
As if having not just played next to them for 48 minutes
exactly
makes any lick a difference. And then when you're on the bench, you have to be wearing a mask, which is good. But if you're practicing together with these guys and going to team events and playing in games, how does that mask really help in that moment at all? Now, potentially for the staff or whatnot, I guess since guys aren't fully quarantined, it helps reduce, but I think they can't speak to players. It doesn't make any real logical sense to me.
It doesn't really make a difference. I mean, I think that's more like demonstrating that they're trying. They also did the whole, like, if you want to be without a mask, you can go to the cool down chair. I thought that was kind of funny.
Yeah.
It reminded me of like my swimmer days when they sent you to the cool down pool. But it's one of those things where, so they said like, no, you can't like high five each other anymore.
No fist bumps, no elbow
fist bumps, mask on. I think the biggest one is definitely what George Hill said as far as saying like, hey, like, this isn't going to stop anybody. And he's low key right. Like, I think he said what every NBA player wanted to say, but didn't want to say, but since it's George Hill, he's going to say it. As far as like, hey, I'm a grown man. I can, if I want to
Yeah.
go see my family, I can go see my family, and I can be safe at the same time, which is how he feels, and which is how a lot of guys feel as far as them being safe. I also heard Brian Windhorst mention that a lot of these players feel like they have the antibodies to COVID by now, because they felt like they've gotten it. So that's why they feel a little bit more emboldened to have people over and stuff like that, which is another interesting thing that he mentioned.
Yeah, but that's pseudoscience
True.
bullshit, because we don't know if having the antibodies will stop you from getting a second infection or the mutations or anything else. So it's great that you may believe that, but you don't work at the CDC. So I don't know if I take what you're saying right now with anything other than a grain of salt. Because, you know, I think it also, George Hill saying it has more resonance because it's not some young kid. It's not, you know, somebody that's been in the league for 2 years. Like he's a veteran. He's been on, you know, championship level teams. He's played a lot. He has the respect of others in the league. And for him to say what all the other players are thinking carries more weight. And I think it cuts through the noise a little bit easier. You can't just dismiss it as like, this, you know, young, rich kid. It's like, no, man, he's a grown man. He's got a family. He's right. How are you going to stop these people? If they want to see somebody, they're going to see someone.
Yeah, I like how he said it too, where he's like, you know, I can do both. I can be safe and I can see my family. I can wear a mask. I can do all that stuff. You know, you're not really going to stop me from doing that, which is true. And you probably won't. And it's one of those things where the NBA can try their best, but this is more to me either irresponsibility from certain players, and then from there going to the contact tracing, and then it's more like just one of those unlucky situations where someone might be doing most of the correct things and just gets COVID anyway.
Yeah. I mean, you can, just like you said, you can do everything right and still get it. You know, it doesn't discriminate against those trying their damnedest to not get it versus those that just are willy-nilly running into every, you know, large crowd that they can find. It'll be interesting. None of the players want to go back to the bubble in Orlando. By and large, every account that you read afterwards, they all hated it. They understood why they did it. It's not like it was the worst thing in the world, but you were just kind of in isolation from everyone you knew for an extended period of time. So it was draining. But if the NBA went back to the modified version of the bubble they're talking about, where like they could do a bubble here in Los Angeles. We have enough open hotels and we have enough basketball courts where it's entirely possible, and have teams come in. You live here, you stay here for a few weeks, play a bunch of games, and then go to Florida or go to New York or go to anywhere else that has enough courts and hotels. And yes, you're not at home, whatnot, but at least you're getting a change of scenery, and we're trying to keep this as safe as possible and also protect the millions of dollars that you're making every year.
I think they're so over the bubble. The players are. Any kind of bubble, even that kind of bubble, I just feel like they can do this. And I think right now, the NBA, Adam Silver, everyone at the top is literally putting the ball in their court and saying, hey, if you guys want to keep this going, we're going to add some new rules. And if you guys can't do this with this, then this is all on you, kind of thing. And I feel like the George Hill response is also a response saying, like, if we, the players, you know, need to do this, and if we need to do something, and if we don't get COVID, let's try and like finish it out. If not, oh well. I think he even said that, like, let's cancel the season.
He did.
Which is one of those things where it's like, I think now is the time where we're going to find out if this works or not. How do you feel about contact tracing, man? Do you feel like that's still the best way to go?
Yes, technically by the science, but it's tough to pin down because, okay, so you were, you know, Tatum and Bradley Beal are playing next to each other. And then afterwards, it's like, okay, I think testing and just continuously testing is probably the more accurate way to go. I know it's the more expensive. Contact tracing, you should already, you know, always be doing anyway. But until someone tests positive, they're coming in contact with each other so much that I think constant testing is going to bear out, you know, more fruitful results ultimately. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It's a tough, because if they do blow up this season, well, then the owners hold the cards in the next CBA, and the players are going to get screwed.
They're going to lose a ton of money too.
Yep.
Like I just don't see. I don't see a way for them to cancel the season. There's just no way. I don't see that. I don't see bubble either. I see them pushing forward. I see like G leaguers coming into the league, expanding the rosters. I don't see them. I see them doing everything they can to keep the season going, except for stopping the season for any reason.
Well, and I also think it's easier for George Hill to be saying that looking at the team that he's on, than they have no real championship aspirations.
Sure.
Let's talk to the Sixers, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Bucks. Is LeBron or Giannis or Kevin or any of these guys saying let's cancel the season because they have a belief that they've got a shot at a championship, especially like LeBron. The time is, the clock is ticking, even though it's incredible to watch at his age and he is still playing this well. MVP caliber.
Yeah, last night he was great.
Yeah. He's still that turnaround, no look three. That's a thing of beauty. It is. I love that he's playing that free all these years later. But talk to them. Because if you can't get them, you're not going to get a canceled season.
Yeah, that's not going to happen for sure. I don't see it happening. I mean, they're already losing. They're already in a loss this season, too. They're already losing money this season. So I doubt they're going to just get rid of all the money.
They're going to cancel your game check and lose like Chris Paul heads the players union. Do you think he wants to cancel this season? A, knowing the ramifications, but B, the Suns are good.
Yeah. So I doubt it. Yeah, I really doubt it.
This is going to be a tough sell. His best friend LeBron doesn't want this season canceled. His other best friend Carmelo doesn't want this season canceled. Like, it's going to be tough to get the top tier stars to agree to this. Like, Harden is on board. Fuck it, let's cancel. But Harden's on board for canceling regardless.
Yeah.
Outside of that, like Steph Curry, the Warriors don't have a shot, but he wants to play. So I don't know. It's a tough sell to me unless this really just starts to turn into so many games get canceled that once we have to make these up, they're all going to be back-to-backs. And you're staring at this gauntlet of we have a 5 and 6 nights coming up, which is going to be brutal. And something the NBA doesn't do. So that's the only way that I genuinely see, and unless it becomes fully untenable to where half the league can't put a roster out there, or they agree with the NBPA and just extend from 15 to 18, and we bring up more G leaguers. But even then, what kind of product are you putting on the court?
Not a good one. It's definitely going to be, I mean, what the Sixers did that Sunday, it's one of those things where you're just like, hey, let Tyrese Maxey go off.
Yeah. Great game for Tyrese Maxey.
Yeah, it's still probably going to be a loss, which it was. And it's that kind of whole ironic situation where you're letting players that don't really play get like 40 minutes, and it's still probably going to be a loss. So it's one of those things, too, where you almost writing those as automatic losses for the teams, too, right? Like say the Suns have like half their roster loss, and they're playing the Lakers, like, they're going to lose. It's one of those things where you're just playing it to play the game, but it's still going to be an L in your record. I don't even know if that's
I mean, you would hope that you can go deeper into bench and see what you've got down there so that when you actually have your full squad together, you can rely on. Or, hey, if we gave, Mikal Bridges more touches, he's going to be able to produce, although he's having a good season. And I loved it for the Sixers because Doc has never liked playing young guys, and he was just forced to play every young guy that he had one night and one night only. It was just, as someone who's watched basketball for a long time, it's like Doc does not want to play his young kids, and this is great.
Yeah, I was telling my friends about it. I was like, this guy would rather like play one of his best players forever than play one of these young guys. He was adamant about not letting these guys have any minutes, man. I've seen games that are like blowouts, and he still has starters out there, and he still doesn't put some of the young guys in there. Yeah. So
he's not as bad as Tibbs, but he's reluctant to play rooks and young guys pretty consistently. All right, before we get out here, let's shift over to a team that has not been discussed in the 3 seasons that I've done this show now, which is the Phoenix Suns, because the Phoenix Suns have been so bad for so long, and now you guys have genuine hope. And as a Bulls fan, it's nice to see somebody else lift themselves up. a shot to make some noise in the playoffs. I don't know if you're championship caliber. That will only time will tell. You still got to beat the Lakers and or the Clippers. It's a tall mountain to climb, but it's not impossible. Especially who knows with injuries and whatnot. But how does it feel to have a legitimate team for the first time, probably since the Nash era?
It's incredible. It really is. Because I am a genuine lifelong Suns fan, like straight up genuine, like straight up. I've seen every Suns seasons, the 20-game seasons, and I've seen every game. I've seen all the L's. I've been to games and I've seen the L's in person. It's not fun. It's really, really not fun to see these teams take loss after loss after loss for years on end. I've been following them since 2003, pretty closely, 2004, when I was a younger kid and in high school as well. High school is when I really got into it. So now this season, man, it really is sky's the limit, except for the Lakers, right? Because my thing is everyone keeps telling me and I get it, and I should be, calm as far as expectations go. To we're gonna make the playoffs, and let's just be happy with that. But to me, I'm just is that good enough though? Can we do better?
Good. You do need to set
but
realistic expectations here, man.
Sure, but I have always wanted more. To me, it's one of those things. I feel like this is the year, man. Look at all these West teams that are seeming pretty solid, but at the same time, maybe don't have defense or maybe don't have the same strength they had before. Look at Houston. Look at Denver. Look at Portland. All these teams that now are looking pretty beatable, that the Suns can probably take their spot. I don't know. I hope, my goal, if I'm being honest, and maybe this is the loftiest lofty thing I can say, but I'm hoping Western Conference Finals. That's give me Western Conference Finals. I mean, that's what I want, man. That's my expectation.
It's not impossible.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
But it's hard. You need some injuries on other tems. You genuinely do.
Yeah. But so far, to me, I don't know what you see, but I see Lakers Clippers as the two kind of consistent. Dominant, consistent.
Technically, the Clippers are above you guys in the rankings, but you're both 7-4. So I would imagine that it comes down to divisional is the reason that they're ranked ahead of you. But you got Utah, Portland, Golden State right below you at 6-4. So it's not like it leaps and bounds. Once again, it's so early in the season that it's hard to make heads or tails of what is and what isn't. But like I told you off air, looking at the stats for your team, it's kind of a wonder that you're at 7-4 right now. So you're 5th worst at giving up field goals, 3rd worst at field goal attempts, but percentage-wise on field goals, you're probably a B- according to. So guys aren't making their shots against you. And then 3-pointers, you give up almost the most 3-pointers and makes and attempts, but by percentage, you're bottom 2/3, but still not the worst in the league. So you're giving up a shitload of shots. They're just not falling for the other teams. And then it goes further from there. You're getting out rebounded. You're getting out blocked, out stolen. You're beating teams on turnovers, so that's good. But it's just you go down the line, it's there's a lot of negatives here right now, but it's early in the season.
It is.
So what do I take from that? I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. To me, it's all. I mean, it's not all, but a lot of it is Ayton. As long as Ayton kind of fastens up a little bit, tightens up, gets a little bit more consistent, a little bit more focused, I feel like it'll get better. Considering the guy, there was one game where he only had 5 field goal attempts or something like that. I forgot what game that was, but I was I mean, are you serious? This guy's 7'2" and he still can't, at least try and get a shot off. That's 1. 2, we had 2 extremely bad games against Detroit and against the Wizards. Those 2 games probably brought us down a lot.
A little bit.
On stats, I think that's pretty bad. If you take those 2 games out, I feel like we're decent. And And the other thing too is we've always had a problem with consistency, which is something that the Suns I've seen happen a lot, where we need to be consistent. But to me, I see our young core just, if they can keep bringing it, and if they get even better, Mikal Bridges, Cam Johnson, Cam Payne, if those guys just start like driving up and getting better and more confident, like Cam Johnson, like that's the kind of guy who can like shoot, drive, like he can do a lot more than just be, you know, standing in the corner and shooting threes, which is what he does right now. But I've seen him drive a couple times. He's athletic, like he can move, he can guard, he can defend. Same with Mikal. Like Mikal, to me, can be one of the best 3-and-D guys in the league. He's such a great shooter, and he's a really strong defender. I think those guys, if those guys come through, and if our Crowders and our Aytons and our Bookers get a little bit more consistent, because they haven't been consistent, I think we can at least second round. Give me second round.
The very best thing you guys did, in my opinion, was jettison Kelly Oubre.
I saw him play last night. Yeah.
He finally had 2 good games, but you know, on RNBA on Reddit, someone had posted a stat that actually ESPN ended up taking and putting on their Instagram page, although they credited the guy. But if you just took Oubre off of from 3-point shooting through the games up until the last 2, Golden State went from one of the worst to either 3rd or 4th best in the league, because that's how piss poor his shooting has been for 3. But to me, he's always been kind of empty calories. He's a playmaker, sure, but he doesn't really shoot all that well. And then when you saw the bubble, and just like, dude, look what happens when you Bridges and Johnson get the minutes that used to go to Oubre. This team is much more interesting and finally plays some solid defense. And Bridges has shown now he's made a nice little jump this year. And Cam Johnson, I think, with given more time, more, overall, more PT, he's going to show market improvements. I thought that was one of the best moves you guys made. And getting Jay Crowder is good because he's just consistent. You know what you're going to get by and large from him. Let me ask you this, since I've never had a Suns fan on this. Were you okay with Ayton over Doncic at the time? And do you lament the fact that you could have Booker and Doncic right now as the best backcourt in the league?
I mean, the obvious answer is yes to the second one.
Okay.
The honest answer to the first one is yeah. I was like, yeah, we got the big guy from U of A. We need a big guy, because at that time we did need a big guy. I think that's something we've always wanted for quite a minute, is someone who's a strong center to have as our big support. So yes, I thought that was the best choice. Obviously, I didn't know what Luka would turn into. I don't think anyone did.
I told my wife, who could give 2 shits about the NBA. It's that she's a great woman, because she just lets me vent sometimes, and she'd be like, oh, that's, she's not really listening, but she's acting like she's listening. God bless her. So it was leading up to this draft, and I'm sitting here going, why are the Suns? This dude is dominating the second best league in the world, and he's a kid. That seems like a no-brainer, number one, to me. Now, it's not like I'm foolproof. I didn't want my Bulls to take Derrick Rose, because like, we have 3 point guards on our roster right now. We don't need another point guard. And then we get him, and you're like, those aren't point guards compared to him. I was wrong.
Yeah.
Because the only thing I had seen of him was the national championship game, because I stopped watching college basketball a long time ago. So it's not like I'm, prognosticating all of these 100%. But that one to me is a no-brainer. That one to me was the Durant over Greg Oden. I knew Durant was going to be, it's like, this dude is 7 foot and shoot from everywhere on the court. Greg Oden has one leg that's shorter than the other. How is that good for a big man?
Yeah, that one I knew too. I can claim that one, but I feel like a lot of people got that one too. The Luka one, it's definitely going to hurt. I mean, you could say that about Trae Young too, with Atlanta.
Sure.
But the Ayton one is definitely one that's been bites in the butt, especially last year. Like last year, that was so disappointing. 22-game suspension, playing pretty decent when he came back. That hurt us. It hurt us bad. We as Suns fans collectively, we were pretty upset. at that whole situation that went down. But then again, we have situations now when it comes to like something like Cam Johnson that I remember that everyone was like, what the hell is this at the number? I think we got him at like number 11. And everyone was like, why would we get a 23-year-old shooter? Like, who cares? And now I think Cam Johnson has some of the best upside on our team. I think he's one of our biggest supports as far as him being a defender and being a shooter.
Yeah, you got 2 3-and-D guys, which everybody covets.
Exactly, and they're playing great. And I really do feel like the more minutes they play, the better they'll get, and the more support we'll have in the playoffs, because that's when we're going to need a lot more defense too. And then when it comes to this year, I can't lie, man. A part of me is like, I remember that day, and I was like, Halliburton, let's get Halliburton. And now, and then we skipped on Halliburton right when he was right there. And then we got this kid named Jalen Smith from Maryland.
Looks good.
Halliburton looks good, man. And a part of me is like, oh, if we had Halliburton, I don't know how that would work, obviously, as far as like our lineups, but we'll figure that out, right? That's exactly the whole point.
You draft, like, to me, when you guys were taking Ayton, you made the Sam Bowie decision of, we already have X, we need Y. And just like the NBA has proven out, take the best play you can and figure out how to make it work.
That's exactly it.
Yeah. If you got to move on from another guy or the guy that you think is the man, when you get the man, like, you know when you have, because there's only so many of those. But, look, as a Bulls fan, our glory days are so long ago. I feel your pain. It's been a lot of down. I know what it's like to like, shit, we could have had this guy, or we could have had this guy, or had we not done this, or traded for this, or whatever the case is. It's easy to look back but that one was one time, because I don't watch college basketball, but so Luka, I had heard about him long before, so I started kind of following, and then the hype was building, and just like, yes, this guy's legit. I've watched him play. He can play. It's like, I saw one game from John Morant in college. He was in the tourney, but after that one game, it's like, no, that guy's 100% ready for the league. He's going to be great. And hey, look at that. I got one right, but you don't always know. But sometimes when you see it, you just know. And that one, but like Killian, I hadn't seen, and I knew some people were really high on him, and it's turned out they were 100% correct. Good for Sacto. You got somebody, good.
Yeah. It's definitely one of those things where
Halliburton, not
Halliburton. Killian, you're thinking Killian Hayes, but
Detroit. So it's just, but at the same time, it's like, look, you have so much to crow about. I think that's why the Suns fan hasn't been on here. I haven't heard any of my friends that are Suns fans talking about their team.
Yeah, so, I have very vocally. I funny enough talk about my team on stuff that has nothing to do with it. Every time I'm talking about movies or stuff like that, I try to mention the Suns. I did, funny enough, man, I did a couple schmodowns a while back. All I do is basketball references.
Oh, really?
In my promos, they're all basketball references. And Suns references. Mark Ellis did a Suns reference when I did a Star Wars schmodown, which I thought was funny. He's like, he's rising up like the Phoenix Suns with Chris Paul. And I'm like, yeah. That's my schmodown character, is the Phoenix Suns. So I have mentioned the Phoenix Suns quite a bit in the past.
I don't watch schmodown.
No, I know, I got you. But it's one of those things where I'm saying, like, as a Suns fan who's actively been talking about him for years, it's really is a relief to talk about him and not be laughed off the court. It's a lot of fun to see that, and honestly, I'm really excited, man. It's one of those things too where, you know what I like the most? Monty Williams. I really like Monty.
Well, you're actually going to have a coach more than 12 months. It looks like, at least right now, but
yeah, we've had a new coach like pretty much every year for the past 6 years.
It's incredible.
Yeah. It's insane. And Monty honestly is showing you what coaching can do. I think a lot of that is our other point guards, Javon Carter, Campaign, two guys who are basically like barely in the league in other, teams. But in our team, they're consistent, playing a lot of minutes, getting a lot of points up, playing really well, cutting at the rim, passing the ball well. Like, to me, that's coaching, because Campaign was a guy who wasn't even in the league last year.
I mean, he's been a Bull, but it was always the promise of Campaign when he got drafted by OKC, I believe it was. But I remember him on OKC as a young kid, and he moves on from there. And it was always like, this guy's got the tools, but but nobody could ever really unlock him. And he's finally rounded a corner. He's playing pretty good for you guys.
He is, yeah. I like how he's playing. I like the minutes that Javon Carter is getting. We're trying to get Dario going, see how that works out. So far, it's okay. He's not playing as well.
I still like it, though.
Yeah, me too, because I feel like he'll eventually get back to form the way he was playing for us a little bit during the bubble.
It's tough for you, just like it is everybody not named LA, New York, Miami, to get free agents to come, to their city. It's the fact of the matter. Unless you have a real championship shot, it's tough to get guys to go to, probably 26 of the various franchises, although Phoenix is better than most.
Yeah.
It's a little easier for Phoenix than it is probably for 22 of those others. But anyway, well, I say we go ahead and wrap it up there. We've covered a lot today.
We did.
But good luck to your Suns. Maybe Western Conference Finals. I'll have you on long before then.
Yeah, hopefully that's my goal, man. If we don't hit it, I'm not gonna be mad, but that's what I want, because I know the Lakers are gonna be the immovable object, the unstoppable force.
True.
But I want to at least stare them down.
But technically, Anthony Davis is injury prone.
True.
So if he goes down, do they have enough with just LeBron and surrounding cast to put up a fight with another team that's fully healthy? I don't know. It's a great question. Having AD there makes it really difficult for anybody in the West. I thought last year the Clippers' depth would have done it, but they couldn't even beat Denver when it came down to it. They fell apart. So we'll see. All right. Anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Yeah, my YouTube channel. First Cut is my YouTube channel. I don't talk about basketball there, but I talk about movies there. We're doing a lot of reviews coming up in these next few weeks, so you can check us out at First Cut. And my Twitter, which is at Squad Leader Ace. I will tweet about the Suns every game they play, every time I'm on Twitter. So check me out over there.
Yeah, I think I've lost followers over the years just for they tuned in for movies only, and it's some movies and it's a lot of basketball when I do decide to tweet, and it's like, I don't know if I signed up for this much basketball.
That's my thing too. I'll get 2 likes on my basketball tweets.
Yeah, I put something up about movies and it gets a lot of likes. And basketball, there's a devout percentage of my Twitter followers that are basketball junkies as well. But the Venn diagram that I've learned over the years with movies and sports, surprisingly, is not that it doesn't cross over as much as I would have assumed. Yeah. But what are you going to do? Who cares? It's neither here nor there. So follow him at Squad Leader Ace. And what was the name of the YouTube channel again? I'm sorry.
First Cut.
I almost said Final Cut. All right. First Cut. My thanks to you, man. It was good talking to you.
It was fun, man.
We will definitely do this again. We'll figure out your schedule, check back in with you and see where the Suns are at, say 2/3 of the way through the season. If you're still vibing on Western Conference Finals, I don't know. I hope you are.
I aim high, and if we fall, oh well.
Exactly. Your reach should exceed your grasp. You should be reaching for the stars. So, it's nice to have those aspirations. I'd like to make the playoffs. I'd like to make the play-in game. That's where I am with the Bulls. I'd like to make the play-in game. I think that's our best case scenario. That sucks. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. We'll talk about the sad state of the Bulls on another show. You can follow me anywhere at Matt Nost. Thanks for those that tuned in, joined us on the live chat. Couldn't get over to that today because there was so much to talk about. So much has happened in the past 24 hours. But my thanks to everybody that joined us today and watched on the live stream. And for those listening, well, hope it was a good audio experience for you. That is it for Dropping Dimes today. We'll see you guys in another week. Until then, adios.